Now, you might ask, what does it mean to take up your cross? Take up your cross means that in no way, shape, or form should you ever be ashamed of Christ. In no way, shape, or form should you ever blame Christ for the tribulations that you might experience in life. You may be sick, you may lose your job, you may have a car accident, you may lose a child. Everything that you have in your life is a gift from God. Every tribulation that you receive is a lesson from God for you to learn from. It is the cross that you need to bear. It is the chance for you to learn and to grow as to what He wants you to do. You can follow the path of the martyrs, which is to die for the cross. You can follow the path of love. It's also written, laying down one's life, there is nothing greater that you can do for your friends. St. Theophanes the Recluse wrote, calling people to bear the cross and follow Him, the Lord is also showing the way, removing the obstacles, not external, but internal ones, rooted in the human heart. By showing us how He died on the cross, Him who at any moment's notice He could have said, no way, I'm not doing this. I don't have to do this. I'm God. He could have just disappeared. But He chose to get on the cross, to die in the most humiliating death possible at that time, to teach us a lesson. That you need to be humble. That you need to accept whatever life gives you. When they spat upon Him, when they mocked Him, when they put a crown of thorns on His head, when they beat Him with a whip, dragged Him through the streets, not once did He cry out, not once did He say, I don't have to do this. And He didn't. He's God. He didn't have to bear any of that. But He chose to so that we could learn what it means to love your children, to love your fellow man. Out of His love for us, He took the most humiliating death possible and turned it into the most glorious and the most exultant demonstration for us of love. Nothing can be more true and nothing can be more uplifting than to think of the price that He paid for us. He gave His life voluntarily. He was on the cross. When He gave up His spirit, He didn't get killed by the Jews. He killed Himself, basically, when He said, it is done. He allowed Himself to die so that we could learn, so that when the Jews later on wanted to break His legs, so that He wouldn't be up there, heaven forbid, on the Sabbath and on Passover, and it'd be a disgrace for them, they came to Him and they couldn't break His legs because He was already dead. But in order to appease the Jews, who said, He can't be dead, we haven't broken His legs yet, the centurion pierced His side and outspewed blood and water. Why blood and water? Water signifies the baptism that we all have to go through. Blood coming out of His flesh, signifying the communion that we just took. Through His blood and through His wine, in His body, we partake of Him and can be part of Him through our lives if we follow Him. In humility, He could have removed His crown. He could have said, I don't want to be spat upon. I do not want to be lashed with a whip. I don't want any of this. He could have, as Satan tempted Him, have legions of angels come to rescue Him. But instead He chose to die so that we could learn a lesson. St. John Chrysostom wrote, we are taught by Christ's sufferings even when questioned by Pilate. Pilate does it in the hall where nobody can hear him. He wants to hear of the kingdom of God. But the only thing that Christ would say was that His kingdom was not of this world. The Jews condemned themselves when they condemned Him to death. They said they have no king but Caesar. Thereby they renounced God. They renounced the kingship of Christ. By their own voice, they punished themselves. by their own desires to humiliate him in death, they themselves were humiliated. They put a crown of thorns on his head, a scarlet robe on his back, a reed for his staff. They struck him with blows, they mocked him, they spit on him. If we think about these, how can you be mad at anyone if you think what he endured for our sake? If you think about it, you lose your anger. If you're untouched by this, then you truly are evil. You have no hope for you. Christ said that one of the things that he had to do in life was the servant is not greater than the Lord. So we cannot expect ourselves to be any greater than Christ. We can only hope to be even as humble as him in our lives. One of the reasons he withstood all this, so that we could walk in his footsteps. There's a Greek term called theosis, where throughout your life you will try to become godlike through your actions and through your beliefs and through your prayers and through your interactions with people. That's what we can only hope, that throughout our life we can be more Christ-like, so that when people look at us and they say, he must be a Christian, just by the way that you act, just by the way that you emulate the forebearer. They won't have to ask you what religion you are, because you'll show what religion you are. The cross is a trophy over death. Christ bore it as most victors in today's games do. When they win a trophy at a football game or a hockey game, they put it on their shoulders. He bore his trophy, the cross, on his shoulders to the streets of Jerusalem. He was crucified with two others, so that the prophecy could be fulfilled that he was numbered with the transgressors. Even in this crucifixion, there was still hope, because one of them repented, and one of them he told would be with him in his kingdom on that same day. Pilate wrote a title on the top: Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. It was meant as a lesson. It was meant as a condemnation. It was a condemnation to the Jews, saying, you killed your king. Not I. You killed your king. He put it in Hebrew, he put it in Greek, and he put it in Latin, so that the whole world would know this is Jesus Christ, King of the Jews. They killed him. It condemns the Jews, but it defends Christ. It tells us who he is. He used his victory, he used this proclamation of his kingdom